Cheers. We have your coffee or your tea or your smoothie or your cup of non-judgment. So I grew up on a farm, a horse farm, in the beautiful Catskill Mountains of New York, and every spring was like Christmas because every spring we had baby horses be born, foals, and those mares taught me so much about motherhood. It's such an amazing sight to see a mare wrap herself around her new foal and sniff it and talk to it and kiss it. And it's like a moment that just gets into the fibers of your being. You can't unsee. It's so profound and beautiful. But like life, and especially life on a farm with animals, you have tragedies and sadness, and you can't have the half of the spectrum where it truly is rainbows and butterflies and everything you would imagine growing up on a horse farm would be like as a little girl, without the other half of the spectrum, which is the dark side. Without the suffering. I don't know if you know who Ruthie Lindsay is, but she's an amazing human being, and I just appreciate her honesty and her growth and who she is as this mother being. But she said something one time that has stuck with me. She said, suffering, if we let it, can deepen our capacity to feel and to love. So while suffering sucks, if we find the power in it, if we find the love power in it, it will really take us places, and those places are where people need us. So back to the horse thing. I got the opportunity to see so many amazing things with the birthing of horses. I also had to see some hard things as a kid and as a young adult. And one time there was a mare who had a foal that was perfect, and something tragic happened. And the foal was only a couple days old. And despite all of our efforts and the vet coming out and doing all the things, the foal passed away. And I was standing outside the stall and I watched the foal pass away. And it was such a heavy moment to be in that space. To be in that space. And if you've been inside that space of suffering, you know what I'm talking about. And a couple minutes went by and we just said, we just need to get the mother out of here. And I'll never forget it. But as I was walking the mare out, my dad was walking the mare out, I was standing there. And she stepped on it as she was walking out. And I was feeling sad at the loss. And it hit me so hard. It hit me like this sandbag just on top of my heart. And I said to Dad, how could she do that? That's her baby. That's her foal. Like, she had totally disassociated, disconnected, left. It was over. And obviously we know that emotions are a lot more complicated than that, but it was so mind-boggling in that moment to say, how could she just and left the stall? You know what I mean? And that has stuck with me forever since then. I'm now in my 30s and that has still stuck with me. I can still be in that moment to this day. Which brings me to what I want to talk to you about on the podcast. And that is the conversation, the very sacred, sensitive, vulnerable conversation of rainbow babies. And if you're weirded out by this, or if you feel like you can't relate, or if you're like, but Alex, you've never experienced infancy loss, I know. I just ask that I'm not going to get graphic or anything, or too super heavy, but I have some thoughts because they're important. And it's true. I have not experienced infancy loss, but I have experienced it. I've experienced people I love go through it. And I have talked to those people. And one of those people who I value highly, her name is Amy, and she is a part of the NAME community. And she was so gracious and loving enough to hold space for me to come talk to her and ask questions, and for her to share her heart, and for me to work out things inside of me, because I get asked this question a lot. I get invited into this space a lot of helping people who have had loss, either naming a baby that they've lost or naming a baby after loss. And I find that extremely sacred, and it needs to be honored and protected. And so when I show up in that space for you, I want to know that I'm showing up the best that I can with the best tools for you. I take my name mentoring seriously. And so since I get asked this question a lot, I feel it deserves a podcast. It deserves a space where I can leave this information here that can get shared beyond me, that comments can get shared around about it, and that it's something shareable. Because what I have to say is important. And I think that it will help bring some healing and some healthy healing perspective for you. When it comes to naming a baby that you have lost, I believe that it can really help with closure to name the baby. Whether it's just a name you keep secret to yourself, or it's a name that you talk about, because something that happens with loss is that sometimes people get weird about it. And it's a lot easier to talk about somebody who's already lived a life. Let's say you have a son or a daughter who passed away in the military, or in a car accident, or with cancer. Somebody can look at a picture of them and say, hey, this person existed. And so while they might not always know what to say, it's easier to acknowledge. That's human nature. But when you get into the realm of this person didn't live a life really outside of the secret place of the invisible, it seems invisible, and so therefore this person isn't tangible to people. And so what's healthiest for you and your family and your people is deciding whether you keep this sacred to yourself and celebrate it in your own way, or if you need to say, this person existed and I will always remember this person. And where I come into it is this really interesting place in the middle, because one side is extremely sentimental and says, yes, honor, and the other side says, no way, they're their own person. And it gets pretty divided, and I have to come in the middle, the messy middle, and help find your heart in it, to help sort things out, which is what I hope this conversation I'm having with you right now helps, is that it helps to sort some things out and give you some food for thought. I have a very high respect for people that I know in the Instagram community who have named their rainbow baby the same name of the baby that they've lost. I would not do that. And yet I have to say I value them, and they are good people making good decisions, and yet they've chosen this. And the question I get a lot is that okay? And I was talking to Amy about this. When you when you have this baby that is now gone and you name this baby, the name you have to recognize is the death of a dream. Because at one time you thought, I was going to have these names on my Christmas card. And now I don't get to have that. So the death of a name, to make that feeling tangible for you, if you're wondering why is this so hard for me, it's because it's the death of a dream. You have to recognize that and honor that, and that really sucks. Okay? And so from this space, from this place, you now have another baby, whether it's after one loss or multiple losses. But here you are, you're finally getting this baby that's going to live a much longer life. And there's that part of you that says, I don't want to forget these other people, this other person, and the war of emotions that are all mixed up in there. And I believe that honoring can be powerful. It helps you remember where you've come from. It helps carry pieces of people. We're all made up of people. We're made up of all the people that have gone before us, okay? We know this. I think Amy said something so profound. Is your decision coming from a place of calm or from a place of being frantic? Is it desperation to hold on, or is it from a calm place? Because if your brain is in a calm place, you make better decisions than from a frantic place. Why is that? Because every person is different. Every situation is different. Whether you're going through your first loss or your second loss or your third loss, it's all like you're a different person every time. And so each situation is differently. But I think that it's all on the journey of getting closure. So you as a person need closure. And if you hear closure and you think it's the end of everything, I can't handle that word, that's not what I mean. Closure is bringing, I don't want to say bringing peace to the situation, but it's putting that mantle on something, giving something a resting place. Closure, a resting place. So we bury pieces of us, and in that moment where it feels like it's totally the end and the death of a dream and everything, where do you find the closure in that? Well, the resting place isn't in the ground as much as it is here. It's here, and we have to work that out. And so if you're looking to put that resting place on another person, I think you're missing out on the true resting place. I think closure has to be your journey, and you can't put that saddle of grief on another person. I think the middle name is truly a seat of honor. It's a place of honor. It's a place of remembrance. It's a very special place and a very special opportunity. And I think first names are more sacred than that, because first names are personal identity. So even if my name is Alex and in 5 years I change it to Winslet, when I'm 80 and I hear Alex, I believe I will still turn my head. It's a part of my identity. I don't want to share too much of my family, my mom's history, because I want to honor her, and these are her stories in her space. But if I found out that my first name was the name of a sibling I never knew, I would have an identity crisis. I would feel like, did you name me for me? Or are you still wanting that other person? And it would send me into an identity crisis, a little bit of a tailspin. What does this mean? Like, is my life been a lie? But if I found out that my middle name was a sibling that I never got to know, that feels more right. It feels like, hey, they're still alive in my life. I can carry them around with me. And that's really beautiful. And so I think that's how I've sorted it out. That was my conversation with Amy, is I think that it's totally okay to honor loss with your child. I just think it has to be put in the seat of honor and not in the driver's seat. Loss cannot be in the driver's seat. The future is in the driver's seat. Loss has to stay in the seat of honor. That's closure. I know quite a few people, I've seen quite a few people on Instagram whose moms had loss of different ages, and the children named their children the middle names to honor the loss. And I thought, how beautiful that when we go through these situations, we want a reason, we want to compartmentalize it, to put a bow on it, to bring some semblance of order, and just trying to find closure so that it can be more easily carried around. I think you have to give yourself the beauty and grace of time and space. Don't try to just fit it all in right now. Let life play out, because you don't know what's going to happen down the road. Down the road, you might start a charity and use that name. Someday, you might start a business, or someday your children might use that name. And that is such a beautiful legacy. That's a legacy of beauty where you can't undo the loss. You can't undo the suffering, but you can find the power of touching other people's lives. The closure is for you. The closure is for you. You need to find that resting place, and it's okay if it doesn't happen right away. You don't have to have this new baby be your resting place. The resting place can come at the perfect opportunity. I experienced a fraction of this idea with my own daughter, because I was convinced for forever that if I had a girl, her name was going to be the name of my grandmother. And I've talked about this in the past, that I was calling her Sally, and my husband could not get on board with it. And if I had have really pressed him, he would have conceded. But I had to get to the place of, I hate being told what to do. I don't want to feel strong-armed. So I have to make sure that I don't do that in return. And so I had to say, he just doesn't have the feels for this name. He doesn't like this name, even though it means everything to me. I can't have him call his daughter a name that he doesn't like. And I went through a mourning process, and she's going to be 4 here in July. And I've just got to the place where I look at her, and of course she is totally her name. She's totally Reagan. And I mean, she could totally be a Sally too. No, I'm not gonna lie. But I had to get to this place of saying, hey, Alex, step out. Her name's Reagan. Why are you still carrying around Sally? And Josiah said to me, if we ever have another one, if we ever have another daughter, why don't you just name her Sally? And I said, but you don't understand. Reagan was supposed to be Sally, so it feels weird. It feels weird. Like it's the wrong place and time. It's misplaced. And I've been wrestling with this for a while. And I realized inside of our hearts are this super special, personal, secret treasure chest. We all have one. Inside that treasure chest are really personal memories. And while I think it would have been beautiful to name Reagan Sally, because I would have loved my name to be Sally, because every time I heard my name, I would have thought of my grandma. At the same time, I realized, okay, that mantle didn't get put on my daughter, but that was my mantle to carry. It didn't fit. If it was supposed to fit, it would have fit, but it didn't fit. And it's over. Like it just doesn't feel right. So that's my little mantle. That's my name to keep in my heart. And you want to know what I can do? I can tell Reagan all about Sally. I can tell Reagan all about the woman who meant so much to me, who was taken too soon. All of the beautiful things. When I make Polish pierogies with Reagan, I will tell her about Sally. I will tell her about the women that went before her that make her up. The people that she carries inside her DNA. All of the strands and the braids of these beautiful people. I will speak their name to her. That will mean something. That is closure. That is the place of honor, is talking about it. Because I think we're programmed that we have to put it on something and then never talk about it. I think that if you're morbidly talking about it, you need some healing. But if you're just talking about it and honoring it because you have a place of peace and closure inside of you, that's much different. And it's really beautiful. It's really beautiful to see power come from suffering. The good power that reaches out and touches people. And as a testament to that, I just want to publicly honor Amy, that I knew what she had gone through. And I guarantee you, when other women are going through loss, who do you think they call? Who do you think has the power to speak into their lives? Who do you think has the power to intercept other people from saying the wrong thing or the dumb thing? Amy. And the other women that I know who have gone through loss. It doesn't matter how far along you are. It's obliterating. And you're wanting closure. So I think that is a lot to digest. I want to leave that with you. I think my children are WWEing wrestling. Is it still called WWE? I don't know. I grew up with my grandpa watching wrestling back when it was WWW, and then when it was the WWF, World Wild, and then World Wildlife Federation was like, please don't use that. I think it's WWE, right? I think that's what's happening upstairs. So I love you guys. I appreciate you holding the space for this conversation. I hope that it can mean something to you. I hope that you can find the pieces that you need in this conversation to help you get to your place of closure. I love you. I appreciate you. Thank you again to Amy and to all of the other women who have gone through loss and walked through it like the warrior poets that you are, because it has spoken to me. And that is such an incredible strength. It's so incredible that you are vocal about it, that you've taken it out of the secret weird places and you talk about it publicly, because that means something. That's bringing change. That is not only keeping all of these beautiful people alive, it's keeping women alive too who feel very alone. So thank you for your grace and your bravery and your beauty and your authenticity. Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you later. And just a quick note, if my podcasts have helped you in some way, please rate it. It helps me, it helps spread the word around. You can follow me on Instagram at The Name Mentor, and I have more resources available